I do not do life lessons. If anyone gets a moral out of this story, I have failed horribly. So don't take any life lessons. Do not get a moral out of this story. I'll tell you why. It's because I went through years and years of Baptist Sunday school. And nothing horrible happened to me. Everybody was very nice. But every lesson had to have a life lesson or a moral attached to it. It's very simple. You could have a story about a kid flying a kite. And the narrator would say, well, in a lot of ways, Billy, flying a kite is the way I treat you as my son, because sometimes I have to pull you back from hurting yourself, even though you feel like you're flying and stuff like that. I got to a point in my life, I do not do life lessons. I have given advice once or twice. I also killed a cat with my bare hands once. I'll get into that in a second. So don't do that, okay? It's like the one life lesson I want to give is don't kill a cat with your bare hands. My point about that is that things connect in weird ways. The cat happened when I was around 16 years old, and this is not a hobby. It was not a dare, and it was not something that I had been looking forward to over the summer. I was walking back from a movie, and if you want to know how old I am, I had just seen the original Red Dawn in downtown Toronto. And I'm walking home. I lived around Yonge Street and 401 in Toronto. I had to walk up a long hill from the subway. I walked through a churchyard, and I had a buddy who lived there who used to go to Baptist Sunday school with me. His name was Ian. They had a cat. His mother had a white cat whose name was Saint Jack K, named after Jack Kerouac for reasons I do not know. And one evening she was going out to get some ice cream, and she backed out of the driveway, and she didn't hit Saint Jack K exactly. She hit half of him. So by the time I walked past that house, and went, hey, Ian, how you because there are a bunch of people standing around this driveway around half a cat. Now, I mean, the half was still attached, but it was kind of flattened. And the cat was still alive, but clearly not in the best of shape. I knew Ian. I knew his father. I'd met his mother. His mother is hysterical. Like, I'm not blaming her for this. She's in the car and she's saying, we've called somebody. They should be coming here very soon. We've called somebody. And Ian's father is standing behind her looking at me saying, and I have a bizarre superpower, which I don't bring up often because you can't really bring this up at a dinner party. I'd also been a Boy Scout. I told you that I had this very white bread existence. I'd been a Boy Scout. In Boy Scouts, one of the things they teach you is if you snag a rabbit or if you trap a rabbit and it's alive, they teach you how to break its neck. Same physics apply to a cat. So at the tender age of 16 or so, I am faced with this, and I'm just kind of standing around, and as Ian's mother is freaking out in the background, his father looks at me and says, we can't leave him like this. And I said, I could. And they looked at me, and I took off my jacket, and I put it over the cat, and I put one hand on the shoulder and one hand on the head, and kind of braced myself. And the cat was no longer in misery. Ian's mother did not deal with this well, for obvious reasons. She starts screaming at me. Ian's father is holding her. Ian's going, I get it, go. And I walk home. This is not the end of the evening I wanted, but it's just something I did that particular time. I saw Ian, I guess, at church 2 or 3 weeks later, and he just came up to me and said, my mom is pissed. I thought, I guess she would be. His father said, we agree that was the right thing to do, Michael, and thank you for doing that. We didn't know how that happened, and Alice understands, but she doesn't want to talk to you. So we all understand this, right? Like, I have nothing against the fact that she didn't want to talk to me. I understand why she didn't want to talk to me. But I have another case where someone stopped talking to me, and I have no idea why. And her name was Nellie. Nellie was a friend of my girlfriend, and this is in the 1990s. My girlfriend was a triple threat. She was a dancer and a musician and a pretty good actor. And Nellie was one of her friends. Nellie was Irish, and she would do Sinead O'Connor and, what's her name, Sarah McLachlan covers at pubs. And we all kind of knew each other, and Nellie was great. Nellie was really nice to me, and she was nice to Louise, until something happened. very abruptly, and I'm talking around like a week and a half. Two things happened to Nellie. Number one, she became intensely Catholic. Nothing against it, okay? I'm not Catholic myself, and nothing against it, but she became really intensely Catholic for reasons nobody was very sure about. She'd say things like, I actually have a fairly high standing among Catholic lay people. And I'm thinking, I thought Catholics weren't supposed to lay people. I mean, they do anyhow. I could tell you some stories. She became intensely Catholic, and she also became intensely, I am going to be a professional singer. She worked at a print shop, so she kept printing up business cards with her name and her phone number and the cassette tape she was selling, because this is really before CDs were cheap to, this is a long time ago, before CDs were cheap to distribute. So every time I saw her, she would give me a cassette and she would give me a new business card and she would lecture me about the importance of being Catholic and how maybe I should start thinking about what I want to do with my spiritual life. And every time she did this, I kept thinking, well, you know, I could be a grown-up and address this properly, or I could simply say, are you still sleeping with that married man? Okay, now you notice I did not say that they were having intimate relations. I would suggest that they were sleeping together because it's decidedly possible they were just cuddling. But she had been dating someone who was just about to finalize a divorce. And this had been happening for around 6 months, maybe longer. And there was always some kind of problem. He was just about to finalize it. And of course, he had to share the house with his soon-to-be ex-wife. And of course, they had to take a vacation together because they'd paid for it. And it was becoming obvious to me that perhaps things were not exactly the way she wanted them to be. None of this is my business. I don't know why this had anything to do with her suddenly deciding she couldn't stand me. But very abruptly, I noticed that she wouldn't speak to me directly. She would say things like, can you ask Michael to bring a bottle of wine over here? Louise, can you get Michael? Can you ask Michael to bring the popcorn? Thanks. And she would be standing in front of me. And it was like a very weird snub. And once or twice I said, have I done something? Are you not talking to me? And she said, I'm talking to you now. And then she'd walk away. Yeah. And 2 minutes later, she'd say, hey, can someone ask Michael to see if he's going to bring some pizza upstairs or something like that? It was weird. She was telling people for me to do things on her behalf, which was ridiculous. And I talked to Louise about it. I said, why is she doing this? Did I piss her off? What is happening? And Louise just said, I've talked to her about it. It's not that she doesn't like you. She just doesn't see any reason for you.
Oh my God. To get her things.
Yeah. And I said, did you say anything in response to this as, you know, the woman I love, who apparently loves me? Yeah. And Louise just said, I don't tell people what to think. I mentioned she wasn't exactly the portrait of wonder and warmth at the time. Yeah. That's a different monologue. Eventually, I broke up with Louise. And when I broke up with Louise, 5 or 6 of her friends decided not to speak with me on spec. We're in our early 20s. This is not an unusual thing to happen. I'm fine with that. I start seeing somebody else. And it is around 6 months later. I'm having a party. It's early spring. Louise has a concert downtown at the El Macombo. I'm not going to go there because we're not exactly in the best terms after the breakup, but I have sent a note saying, hey, I know you've really wanted to do this. Congratulations. I hope it goes well. Somehow that note found its way to Nellie, the one who doesn't like me. Nellie called me, and Nellie leaves a message on my answering machine. This is the days before digital voicemail. This is a good old-fashioned machine with a cassette tape. And it goes like this, and I'm not exaggerating. It's, hello, Michael. This is Nellie. I just want you to know that you are not going to come to Louise's show tonight because I do not want disgusting men who do horrible things to their girlfriends. And if you come here, Michael, I am going to stomp on you. I am going to piss on your shoes. I am going to kill you, Michael. Now, I did not kill this woman's cat. And she hates me. Ian's mother, and what sounds like an unrelated story, is not so unrelated. I understood why this woman didn't talk to me for years. Nellie, I have no idea. I've never done anything bad in her direction. I've never done anything bad around Louise for her to be pissed off. But I get this message from this intensely Catholic, we all have to live together and grow spiritually woman. Now, what would a petty son of a bitch do?
Go to the concert.
Oh, no. No, that's a good idea. I should have gone to the concert. See, what a petty son of a bitch would do in the early 90s would be to take that cassette tape and, if they happened to live someplace where, like, their roommate had a boyfriend who was a musician and had a dual tape deck, would make 5 or 6 or 10 copies. And this vengeful son of a bitch would take those copies and put one of those business cards that Nellie gave him into the case with those cassettes and find assorted mutual friends or former mutual friends at this point and drop it off and say, hey, listen, you remember when I was seeing Louise and, I kept saying that Nellie was being rude to me and everybody said I was being oversensitive? This is kind of her greatest hits package right here. And the best part is, if she did this to me, I promise she'd never do anything like this to you, would she? I was going to do that. I had 12 tapes set up. I had a business card in each one. I had a friend at CIUT, which is Ryerson Radio Station, and they're always looking for new material. I was going to drop it off. I am spitting. I am frothing at the mouth. I usually have a no aggression policy, but I've had it. I can't deal with this. This is awful. It takes me a day or so to prepare the tapes. I'm going to drop them off at people's houses. And yet, on a Sunday morning, 4:45 a.m., I get a phone call. Pick up the phone. Yeah, who is it? I said, Michael, it's Nellie. And I said, yeah, thank you for saying all that to my face. And she said, can I say something to you, please? Okay, yeah, what is it? I should not have done that. None of that message had anything to do with you. I was out with some people and we were talking about things and I knew about the show and it just came out that way. I am very, very sorry I did that, and I am just asking if we could please have this just between ourselves. I told you this all happened in the spring. This was Easter morning, Easter Sunday. The devout Catholic girl has called me on Easter Sunday morning, early enough that she's going to a sunrise service. I don't know if it's exactly out of a spiritual awakening. I just thought, I've lost my ground, because one of the things I was going to do is say, I've got this tape, and she never apologized. She never said sorry. She never explained it. Yes, she did. 4:45 Easter Sunday morning. I could not bring myself to take any further action. And after a few seconds, I said, okay, you know what? Yeah, it's okay. You called. You apologized. I will call this even. But can I ask one thing? She said, okay. I said, when you were going to concerts with Louise and I always paid your gas money. And you came from my house for parties 4 or 5 times. I always gave you dinner. And you always said thank you. What exactly did I do to be the object of that call and every bit of weirdness you've done for the last 6 months? And her answer was, take care of yourself. No life lessons other than stand on what you want to do. It would have been so much more fun just to hand out the tapes, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The fun was out of it. I was resentful of myself that I couldn't actually go away with being vengeful, but I guess in the long run it's something else. And this ties into the cat, which I know is bizarre and peripheral, but I always put them together because it was 10 years before I saw Ian's mother. And she came up to me and she said, Michael, yes, I don't think I've been exactly comforting or welcoming to you for, since that time with St. Jack K. And I said, I understand it. It was not a great experience. She said, well, thank you for understanding. And Nellie, not her real name, records jingles for all kinds of things, including the company I work for. So I was in an elevator with her 2 weeks ago and kind of looked at me, and I kind of rolled my eyes, and she kind of rolled her eyes. We both kind of smiled and got off the elevator. Not sure what moral or life lesson you would take from that. I hope you don't take anything, but maybe get long enough away from something it doesn't matter. Thank you.